Heyo! Welcome. A little bit late, but I postponed the stream because I got home 15 minutes ago and I needed to take care of just a few little things before the stream started. And yes, I know that there are a few trials going on, but if I wait for both Vices and I don't know, maybe Vices has stopped streaming for today, but before David's stream is done, it will probably be 1 a.m. here. And I really don't want to start a stream at 1 a.m. So I might survive slightly less viewers than usual for people can join the rewatch crew. Hey, and that's not so bad. Hello, Kim, and hello, American Dreamer. I have sent out a link to a few people who may or may not join, but nothing is certain. Now, for just a slight recap. So far during the Daubert hearing, we have heard from medical examiner who doesn't follow standard operational procedure. Maybe. Medical examiner who doesn't use standard operational procedure and who doesn't keep her notes unless she thinks it's important. Then a few other experts, and followed by the pinch and zoom guy. And the pinch and zoom guy who the prosecution wanted in as a forensic video analyst. But once we got through that, his Daubert hearing, we learned that what he does, the only thing he does, is that he has a video, he takes a screenshot, puts it in Photoshop, and then pinch and enhance. And he still got in as an expert, but only as a video enhancer expert. And I promise you, my 5-year-old niece knows more than that guy. Maybe she can testify in this. Then we got Mr. Sprinkles. That was interesting because so far he is the only one that has traces of competence, who testified that one of the things the prosecution wants to have in this trial is that 4 of the young thug YSL gang once was suspects in a murder. But he said on the stand that he didn't even bring it to a grand jury. So that's that. And then we left off last episode with this is the signature guy, the compare handwriting expert. And if you were here then, you know that my feelings against shady science, non-existent science. Yeah, but apparently after a lot of back and forth, he got in. Yay! This trial, once it starts, will be a cluster F. And yeah. Today we are continuing with the Daubert hearing. We are leaving the signature guy behind. The court have had lunch, and we are moving back to see what is going on with that. And housekeeping, as usual, I don't mind super chats. I prefer if you become a member, and if you so want, I will leave a link to Zachariah Anderson's defense GoFundMe. There. Where did it go? Where did it go? There it is. And I will share that link in the chat. There. And I will pin it on top of the chat. So if you have a $5 or $10 or a $2, feel free. I will have the page up in the background, like this. There it is. And if there is stuff coming in there, I will read what you write there. Okay. But we are here for Young Thug. Oh yes, the names in this case. What did we have? We have Prosecutor Love on the stand earlier on a previous stream. We had the Assistant District Attorney Sprinkles. What else did we have? Yes, Officer Fanny, which, if you're from UK, is hilarious. And then, at least what I heard, one of the defense attorneys is Attorney Short. And yes, so that is where we are. This is gold. I wish more found their way to this channel and see and have fun at this as we have, and at the same time learning what is a RICO trial and everything about that. But this is what is on the menu. Let's see here. Boop. Yep, Attorney Short. But we are all here to hear. Will there be more interesting names? Will there be more crap experts allowed in? Will we soon reach the point where the judge is handing out punishments? You'll never know. But here we are. So let's get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
All right, Ms. Rosenwasser, who do you have available at this point in time, madam? Do you have both Dr. Henninger and Mr. Bernini?
Yes, we were hoping we could take Dr. Henninger first.
Let's do that. That's fine.
And, Your Honor, I was wondering, just for scheduling purposes, does the court still want us to have Investigator Hall here after?
He was supposed to be here anyway, so.
He's on his way, we just didn't want to.
And why are you asking me about that?
Okay, I'll make sure.
I mean, I look, in all seriousness, I'm just, we'll see how things go. But as long as we can take care of these other two witnesses, that's fine. And then we'll see how much time, or see what the day leads us or leaves us with. Related to your schedule, madam, do you have the three witnesses or is it one witness for Mr. Farley's three remaining motions?
Your Honor, it's three witnesses. They are available on the 28th, and then.
But no, I thought you said you were all going to do those. You did say the 28th. Yeah, that's right. I apologize.
The two motions I can do today for Mr. Farley is he has a constitutionality constitutionality motion, and he has another demur. No witnesses are needed for that.
When did he file those?
They were filed in the 22 pack. It was just the 2 that I handled that Mr. Floyd didn't handle, so we said we could do those anytime. I can do them now. Or
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
And the other 3 evidentiary motions need the 3 witnesses.
That's fine.
Who are available on the 28th.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I also spoke with Mr. Adams this morning. Mr. Adams was discussing his client's motion to suppress, and I believe he may also wish to be heard on the 28th. And our witnesses could be available that day as well. So we were just curious if we could get some guidance from the court on whether to have those out-of-state witnesses come again.
That's the motion suppress that was begun previously with the out-of-state witness. Motion suppress statement from DeKalb County. Mr. Steele had actually begun that motion. I anticipated he would want to conclude it, but he'll be back on the 28th. He'll be.
That's fine.
If we can do it in the afternoon of the 28th with the court's permission, that would be fine.
Okay. All right.
The only other issue, Judge, is in regards to this afternoon. One of the witnesses, Mr. Burney, is going to be called, I guess, after Dr. Henninger. We're going to object to him being called. I think I speak for myself on behalf of Mr. Williams as well as the other defense attorneys.
All right.
Mr. Burney is going to be called as a cell phone location expert. My understanding is that he has not prepared an actual report, but is in the process of doing so. We would object to him testifying prior to him completing that report and letting us have access to it, since that essentially is going to be the subject matter of his testimony or his qualification. We don't have any objection to him testifying at some later point when he's done with the report and we can actually have access to it. But I think it's counterintuitive to have him testify and try to be qualified now on something that he's not completed yet, that we would need in order to properly cross-examine him or voir dire him.
All right. Madam?
Hello, atheist. Just think there are several people in jail while the attorneys are not prepared. What the actual F? Yes, I forgot to say that. If you're completely new, either in live or as in the replay crew, there are still, to this day, 4 or more defendants who still not have representation. No lawyer, not even a bond hearing, because there's not enough lawyers who are willing to take on this case, because the state only pays $15,000 for the entirety of this trial. Now, 15 grand is not something to sneeze at, but this has already gone on for a year. And the trial, once it starts, will go on for at least 6 months. So we are talking about maybe 2 years of trial and preparation and everything, Daubert and jury selection and everything. Then all of a sudden, $15,000, that's not much. That's not, people are literally going bankrupt doing their job as a defense attorney. So there's something really wrong in the state of Georgia, who brings forward a RICO case they know will take an immense amount of preparation and a very long trial, and they won't pay the defense. They brought it. The state brought this case as a RICO trial. In my opinion, that should mean they pay the lawyers what the lawyers are charging. If they want this, a RICO trial, instead of dividing everything up in separate trials, then you pay for it, Georgia. Tell your taxpayers that we overextended this and you are going to pay for it because that's according to Constitution. Explain that to them. No. Yeah, let's continue.
Your Honor, Mr. Adams is absolutely correct. He has not finished his report yet. However, we brought him here today. We had the Daubert hearing scheduled. We believe that it would be appropriate. So there's different prongs of Daubert. It's whether the person's qualified to offer the testimony, whether the science itself is reliable, and whether the application, whether they have reliably applied the reliable method to the thing they actually tested. So if the court would like to reserve that third prong,
and you already proved him as the
next on the first two prongs today and simply revisit this at the time his report is created, or I mean, we will ask him if he plans to, of course, reliably use his methods. But he's here. He traveled from Alabama today. We thought perhaps we could at least get his qualifications and the reliability of the methodology itself on the record today. And if the court wishes to reserve its ruling until immediately prior to the testimony of trial, or until the report's created, that's fine with the state, Your Honor.
We'll be guided by whatever the court decides. It just seems a bit counterintuitive to kind of have them start testifying and then bring them back. And here's the other thing, just from a practical standpoint, let's say he gets qualified as an expert, but then the report doesn't come in for whatever reason. And then it's kind of, we're going through the exercise for nothing. It just seems to make sense to have him come when the report's done and we can just kind of do it whole hog, if that's a phrase.
Whole hog?
No.
Your Honor, again, I'm just going to reiterate my request.
I'm feeling that.
Alabama, we'd like
I'm
to
so
put the first
feeling
two
that.
on the record so that
Why did you have him come today then? I mean, it does sound counterintuitive that he would probably at least need to be able to testify, hey, I did this particular test with these in this particular manner, and I followed these particular, these methods. Consistent like your other cell phone expert did. When's he going to finish his report?
should be fairly soon, Your Honor.
And it's got to be provided to the defense.
It will be.
So I think it's probably a little much. Yeah, it's probably a little bit probably
Premature to bringing him.
not ripe quite yet.
Premature?
Yeah, ripe. Where I'm looking for.
What else were you looking for?
Yeah. So let's just you can explain to him that that it would make better sense if we did that. And maybe you can ask him when his report's going to be due, because we can. I mean, if worse comes to worse, I can always take it before he testifies.
Hey.
I can qualify him. I mean, it took Mr. Worrell probably about maybe 40 minutes or something like that, 30, 40 minutes. So I mean, there's no reason.
Yeah, imagine how many trials they could have had instead of this cluster F. Imagine how many trials. Imagine how much resources that could have been freed up instead of bringing this RICO trial. This trial is costing the taxpayers millions. I'm not exaggerating. I don't think, but everybody in that courtroom, except, well, the defense lawyers are paid 15 grand, but everybody else, the judge is getting a nice chunk of change. The prosecutions, they're not poor. The court reporters, the guards, everything around it costs a lot of money. I would not be surprised that every court date is somewhere between I'm going to throw a number out there that might seem, but between 50 and 75,000 each court date. Yeah, but let's continue.
Reason we couldn't do it prior to trial, or prior to his testimony being offered.
Okay, I can go check with him and see if the report might be done and report back to the court.
Okay.
Yeah, the prosecutor from The Shining. Okay. Move forward. Come on, Thug. Think.
We should.
Come on. And now they are having a classroom meeting. Yeah, all of those are attorneys for the defendant. At this time, early January, there were 28 defendants. Yay! We'll get on with it.
I just didn't want to be lost in the shuffle, and I still have an outstanding one, so I just wanted to speak up as opposed to.
Your Honor, he filed that motion like a couple of days ago. As the court knows, I've been here, so I haven't had a chance to respond to it yet. I'm not sure what the motion is.
We're still actually, and I'm not blaming anyone here. Let me just say that, but we're missing some photo lineups, and I was trying to hold off on filing it, but
That's a continuing discovery issue, so.
Well,
If you don't get it prior to the trial.
Well,
Supplementing discovery.
I filed a motion to suppress the
I don't know anything
identification,
about young Thug,
based on
other
what
than he
the transcript
runs an
indicates happened,
YSL
but I
gang.
don't have the actual photo lineup yet.
Yeah, and I hope you're feeling better, Nanya.
Well, of course, until they're admitted, he could have that typical motion. I'm running out of time, so I have to count.
I understand. That's fine.
Before that's admitted, you can sort of take it out.
Thank you.
Your Honor, we confirm, Deputy Hall is, he's on his way, he'll be here. We should be able to take him after. If he's on his way, if he's not here, I can be ready to argue.
Okay, there's someone on the way at least.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, can we call Dr. Andrews?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Dr. Handkerchief?
All right, please, Dr. Andrews. Hey, folks, we're talking. Look, if you all can kind of keep this down a little bit because.
Yes, the bald guy who was up speaking, that's Attorney Short.
So, for us to be able to hear and go over it, so to the extent that you.
I know, that I know. That was in violation of parole, I think. No.
All right, Dr.
That was
Andrews, good afternoon,
but,
sir.
When we get there after the Daubert hearing, I will go into some of the surroundings as well in preparation for when the trial. Okay.
Remain standing, sir. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this court will be the truth?
Okay, another 112-year-old doctor.
Yes. You may lower your hand. You may be seated. For the record, please state your name, spell your first and last word, and state your occupation.
Okay, my name's Dr. Michael Henniger.
Make sure you speak.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, my name's spelled Michael and then Heninger. And I am a forensic pathologist at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office.
Good afternoon, Dr. Henninger. How are you?
Excellent.
Good, good. How long have you been a forensic pathologist?
I started working at Fulton County as a forensic pathologist. It's my first my job basically in 1995 in July.
Okay.
So since then.
Okay. And can you tell the court a little bit about your education?
Yes. I started out at Utah State University. I received a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. And then I went to medical school at the University of Utah and I received an MD degree. I went to the military and did an internship in internal medicine at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. I practiced primary care medicine for a few years. After I finished my commitment to the military, I went back to Utah. I did a 4-year residency in anatomic and clinical pathology. And then I did a 1-year fellowship up in Minneapolis at the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office in forensic pathology. And when I finished that training, I came to Atlanta,
Great.
began to work for Fulton County.
When did you, when did you start studying medicine?
I went to medical school I started medical school in 1982. I did pre-med undergraduate. So basically when I graduated from high school, I started doing pre-med classes.
Okay.
And even some of the high school classes were, like they teach physiology and biology in high school. So, I mean, I'd have to go back to the 9th grade to really say that's when I started studying things that were academically going to lead to medicine.
Thank you, sir. Are you involved in any professional organizations?
Yes, I am.
And what are those?
Okay, there's two of them that are that people in our field belong to. There's one called the American Academy of Forensic Sciences.
Started out as a medical doctor.
It's a big, huge
then
group of
discovered he likes
people that
dead people more.
from all different disciplines, not just in medicine. There can be anthropologists and dentists and different areas of expertise. The one that's particularly focused on forensic pathology is called the National Association of Medical Examiners. It's a smaller group, but they're all forensic pathologists.
Maybe they know each other.
Most of them anyway. And they I also belong to the American Medical Association.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move into State's exhibit, proposal exhibit 16, I believe. Permission to approach the witness?
Anybody not seen say 16,
Okay.
Dr. Hammond, you see who? All right, you may approach.
Thank you. Dr. Henninger, what is that, doctor? Do you recognize the doctor?
This is the version of my CV that I have on my desktop. That's kind of a basic summary of simple basic summary of my CV.
Has there been any alterations to that document?
No, there's trying to see if it's. I think I had one more article that's on this, but that's just probably since I gave that to whoever did. But anyway.
Any objection to state 16? All right, state 16 is admitted.
Why is he out of breath?
Dr. Henninger, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any certifications?
Yes, I'm board certified in anatomic and clinical pathology. I'm also board certified in forensic pathology.
And with those certifications, are there any kind of continuing education courses?
Yes, there are.
Okay. Can you tell the court a little bit about those?
Okay, continuing education, basically, on average, once a year, we have a national meeting that we can go to, and they usually last approximately a week, and their lectures and papers are presented, and their discussions about various fields. I generally have gone to those. I've gone to more than required some years, and occasionally I do present things. I'm not an academic forensic pathologist. I'm not one of the people that are in the middle of doing that and doing the major lectures, but we attend those, and that's a requirement to maintain a license to practice medicine.
Are there any tests you regularly have to take?
Okay, they have instituted that.
So if you have political
when I got board
aspirations
certified, they
from-
had, and I haven't had to
Look
take
what
the
I won.
tests. So there aren't any of that. I mean, I've helped write the test questions when they request that. I'm kind of my level of experience. I'm more on that side of it. But
Sure. So I want to kind of transition. How were you trained in performing autopsies?
okay, that's a very good question. We start out. There's
killing regular patients and then move
basically
on.
when I was an undergraduate in college, my last year we had an anatomy class at the college, and we had a cadaver that we looked at. So we started learning anatomy at that point. In medical school, we had a year-long course in anatomy, and we did basically one autopsy all year long. So we went through every single thing they could think of. And then when I was a fourth-year resident, I did a rotation in pathology, and I did they let me kind of do an autopsy and under close supervision. So those are a few, and that's more than is typical for students today, but probably pretty typical for that time. But the real training begins in your pathology residency, where you're required to do a certain number of autopsies. So that's when I started doing autopsies, more than one, and focusing on learning how to do them. And those were hospital autopsies that are basically looking at people's natural diseases, so it's more closely related to medicine, and the forensic aspects aren't really in that. And then when I did my fellowship in Minnesota, the first day I was there, I did a forensic autopsy under supervision. The second day I had a homicide that ended up going to court, and I was under supervision doing that with really close supervision. So that's how you learn, and you do. I did about close to 200 of those that year. And then when you're in practice, you're constantly learning from your cases. You don't just walk into this knowing everything. And then there's the process where we had a fellowship, and I've helped train other physicians. So that's kind of how I've learned how to do autopsies. It's a work in progress that keeps going on for your whole career.
And do you typically stay up to date with like developments in that field?
Yes.
Have you ever taught any classes?
Yes, I don't have that in my resume, and they're not that well documented, but I have taught over at Emory. They had several lectures that they have in all different kinds of areas of pathology, and I've done several lectures on forensic pathology at Emory and they're geared towards pathology residents, not necessarily forensic pathology residents. Most of the teaching that goes on in our office, we do have little kind of one-on-one.
At least it sounds like
training
a
sessions with
regular
the fellow, but a lot of it's at the
which we have
at
had
the, what
very
we call
few
the bench or at the autopsy table,
3
where
days.
where you see something interesting and you show it to the resident, or you're watching what they do and pointing out things they need to do. That's kind of guiding them through this process. So
How often do you teach over at those classes over at Emory?
right now they were canceled during COVID, and then they haven't really started back up. Or if they have, they're having other people do them I don't know about.
Have you ever received any awards for your work?
I don't know, paycheck. I don't, I mean, not really. I'm not like the people who get the awards are people who are usually in administrative seats. I don't know, not really, I guess no is the answer.
Has your work ever been published?
I have been involved in writing articles. The person I worked for 20 years
working
was one of the
guy.
academic forensic pathologists. He was the head of NAME at one point.
So far.
And he wrote hundreds of articles, and he encouraged me, and I did do a few. They weren't really required. So I did, I just kind of plugged away at it. So I have on that resume, I've got a list of articles that I've either written or helped write.
Approximately how many autopsies have you done or assisted with over the years?
Well, assisted with really interesting, but just done. I've done at least 250 for 27 years, 250 each year.
Oh.
So that's up over 7,000 autopsies. As far as assisted, depends on what degree, because we have meetings and we talk about the cases, and the more complicated cases we talk about more. And that would be the total caseload of our office, which is over 1,000 a year of just autopsies and at least 2,000 cases. So those numbers get really high, but they're not. I think it would be deceitful for me to say, some big, huge tens of thousands of those.
Sure.
I mean, I was involved in the more interesting ones. Most of them are just,
Have you ever been qualified as an expert before?
Yes.
In which states?
Minnesota and Georgia.
Which courts?
Mostly Fulton County. The first couple of years I was here, we worked at the GBI, and I testified. It was kind of Fulton County and GBI, we covered both areas. And I did get testifying at several murder trials in various places around Georgia, not in Metro Atlanta.
And about how many, I'm sorry, let me strike that. Have you been qualified as an expert in civil cases as well?
A few.
About how many times?
I haven't kept track, but it's not a lot.
If you can recall, what was the nature of that testimony in those civil cases?
The civil cases I've been involved were usually depositions, and they're usually related to injuries and either traffic accidents or on the job injuries, things like that. That basically they wanted to know the death, the injuries and the cause of death. But I mean, certainly wasn't testifying about all the other things that go into that.
Dr. Henninger, what techniques do you use to conduct autopsies and determine cause of death?
Okay, so there's the autopsy itself, which is like a medical procedure where we examine the body in a systematic way. We have investigators that are similar. Some of them have been police detectives, or they're similar to them, but they collect information, and we evaluate that information. And then we have tests. We do lab tests. Basically, there's toxicology. There can be other lab tests. We have an X-rays that we look at and take. So those are some of the things that we do. And then I guess the other half of that is documentation, and we take pictures and we create a report.
How did you learn these techniques?
By doing them, basically. Yeah, the autopsy itself, we started way back, the beginning, and then the majority of that is exactly how to do them efficiently, how to do them with chain of custody issues in mind, forensic issues in mind. That happens in my fellowship. And so basically I'm doing a case, but a person that's experienced is standing right there, and they let you go as far as you can. And part of being on the other end of that is, is knowing how to step back and look at a fellow who's training, let them go just far enough that if they make little mistakes, they're not serious, and kind of stop them before they cause problems, but not let them get, into where they do really major mistakes.
Do others use those same techniques?
Yes. I mean, I'm not, my experience isn't great, but from what I can tell from the meetings and from, different talking to people, it's fairly homogeneous across the different offices. There are probably
does not follow SOP.
Minor details that are different in different places that I'm not very familiar with, but I think that's pretty much the standard way.
Okay. And how would you go about determining the cause of death?
Well, the same thing. I want to look at the information, the circumstances. I want to look at the autopsy. If I did it, or else read the report and look at the pictures. If I didn't, I want to see all the ancillary information, and then, think about it. I may even look stuff up. I have textbooks, or else, get online and find reliable sources for answering questions I may not have on the top of my head or whatever, and then make a determination of cause and manner of death.
Do other medical examiners use those same techniques?
As far as I know, all the ones that I'm acquainted with use something very similar to that.
Okay. And do you know, are these procedures published in a textbook?
There's several textbooks that have different aspects of it. I don't know that we have one comprehensive textbook that tells everything you need to know for everything. There's books, a lot of textbooks are just information, like common, like say you might have a chapter on gunshot wounds, it'll tell you about gunshot wounds. And then there are books on procedures, on, how to do basic procedures. And then
He is basically saying the same as the first medical examiner on episode 1 of this Daubert hearing streaming I'm doing. But he's much more credible because he doesn't try to make it more than it is. So I like this guy so far. And Gigi does too.
there are also like uncommon procedure, unusual procedures. And then when you've done it a lot, you can often kind of see where the boundaries are, and you can create like other approaches that are within the realm that can answer questions.
Sure. What about professional publications? Have those procedures been published in professional publications?
Some of them are published. There's books that have been published systematically by people who are familiar with a lot of different procedures. And then a lot of the articles are like, kind of interesting, unusual situation where they had to do something different than usual. So there are books that do that.
And typically, how would you stay up to date with the procedures?
Basically, I go to the meetings and talk to people. Until COVID hit pretty hard, I rode the train to work every day. I had 2 hours to read. I just mostly read forensic pathology or general pathology textbooks because, that seemed like it's part of my job. I'm sitting there, I'm going to work, it's hard. I might as well read that instead of something else,
Dr. Henninger, is your work ever checked by your colleagues?
Yes.
Okay. Do you check others' work?
Yes.
How often?
All the homicides are reviewed. And then the other reports are, we have a morning meeting where we present the cases and decide what we're going to do. And then at the end of that, we go over the cases from the previous day and to kind of see, basically it's teaching for the fellows and the residents that are there. But it functions as people can see what everybody else is doing. You can kind of learn. Often people will raise questions, they'll find something. They'll say, well, I wonder what this means, or what is this?
Peer review, that's quality control.
Are there standards that basically control your assessments in your work?
Yes.
Are there best practices?
There are best practices is fairly nebulous because if you're really good, you may do better than someone else. But there are definitely standards, and the standards try to describe what is good practice for sure.
And do you follow those best practices?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if this, the medical examiner that we heard from on part 1, if she is this guy's boss. I'm starting to think that this guy is much more competent, but he's competent at his work. She is one step up from him, 1 or 2 steps up. And maybe she got the famous Peter's principle. And Peter's principle is that you will get promoted to your level of incompetence. Check it up. It's quite a fun theory.
Who else would you say use the same procedures as you?
Who else uses the same?
Who else would you say use the same procedures as you?
All the people on these reports were using them, and let's see, 2 of them have moved to other offices. As far as I know, they're still doing things similarly.
Do all federal, state, and governmental agencies performing autopsies use those same procedures?
I don't know about the federal government. I think they do. They're mostly military people. They may have their own things, but the states, all the states, their state medical examiner systems, their counties, and I think
this RICO trial will bring in everything that happened in the gang. So if there is murder charges on one end, everybody can be indicted for the same murder charges. I haven't read the actual charges because we're not at trial yet. So I don't know what charges they brought within the RICO Act. But we will find out eventually.
all those offices are following very similar to our procedures, or at least attempting to.
And did you perform, in this case, an autopsy of a Donovan Thomas Jr.?
Yes.
And did you follow all the standard and procedures that you discussed above?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we would ask the court to qualify Dr. Henninger as an expert in forensic pathology based on his number of years of experience, his background, his training, and the fact that this is well-established, accepted field in forensic science.
All right. Dr. Henninger is an expert in the area of forensic psychology.
Okay, no questions from
May
the
Dr. Henninger
defense.
currently temporary excuse for purpose of the motion. Dr. Henninger, appreciate you coming to visit
Thank you.
us.
Yay, a competent expert. We got one at finally. Finally, we got a competent
Thank you, sir.
expert at what he does. No handwriting guy, no pinch and zoom guy. Yeah, yay, one. It took 3.5 days to get a competent expert in this RICO. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, so George wants to talk with Mr. Bernini.
He is, we sent him, back on his way, he said he's going to try to have a draft report, basically as soon as he can, hopefully before the end of the year, and, he'll definitely have a final report before trial, we'll turn it over as soon as we have it.
Okay, all right, and we'll hold off on him for the time being. Consistent with his completing report before he testifies, or you decide to then the witness in this case. We'll do go through a job analysis of threshold elements. All right, and then,
He is, he's acting, he
okay. Duplicative accounts.
gang constitution.
Yeah, duplicative accounts and the gang statute.
Let's see.
Have you put Mr. Carlson on already?
Anytime soon. Oh,
He-
young guy
he
is
can do it, or
coming
I-
up.
I can do it, Your Honor.
Okay. Just gonna have the accounts.
Hey.
All right. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Okay, this guy later on. Yeah, I've been. This is episode 5 of the Daubert hearing leading up to what hopefully soon will be the RICO trial of young Thug. And so far, it's been a cluster F of bad experts that are being let into this RICO trial. This attorney you see here, at some point from now to later, got himself in a bit of trouble. I don't know if it is today or the next day, but some shenanigans will happen. And because we do know that in the jury selection that follow this, that we will get to eventually, one juror got sent to jail because she filmed in the courtroom during jury selections, and that's a really bad idea. We also know that different attorneys get sanctioned because of contempt of court to write essays or stuff like that. We also know at some point in one of these hearings, there will be an alleged transfer of drugs. So that's fun. And this guy here gets into trouble, I think, because he had prescription drugs with him to court without the letter from the doctor. Or something of that sort. But will it happen on day 3? I don't know. But we'll see.
I mainly rely on Meeks v. State, which is 309 Georgia App 855. That held that a one count of theft by taking was subject to a special demurrer because it was entirely duplicative of another charge that was charged in the same offense. And here, Your Honor, I'm basically asking the court to apply Meeks to this indictment the way it's specifically written. In Meeks, the Georgia Court of Appeals held that
Never heard of that.
the counts were duplicative because they provided no additional facts by which it can be distinguished from the other count, and it alleges neither a different set of facts nor a different date. And so, Your Honor, that's what I allege, that counts 50 and 51 are duplicative of count 49. count 49 is where Mr. Farley is alleged, along with Mr. Stillwell, Nichols, and Garlington, to have murdered Mr. Drinks. And in that count,
Okay, that answered your question earlier. Yes, apparently there is some kind of murder charge within this RICO trial. Huh, now we know that.
they say the reason why, Your Honor, this is especially duplicative is it says that Mr. Drinks was an associate of a rival gang. So essentially what I'm asking the court here is to find it duplicative, because I know the state's going to say that a gang activity charge and a murder charge are not duplicative, even if it's that murder that is the basis of the gang charge. But, Your Honor, I think that this can't survive a demurrer under Meeks, because they write up count 49 as a gang charge. They just don't write the caption. And, Your Honor, the caption is not what holds, it's the substance. And so here in count 49, the substance is the same as counts 50 and 51. Had they not put in that part where it says an associate of a rival gang, then I get it. There's an extra set of facts that, oh, we're saying you killed this guy, and then in this other count, we're saying you killed him as part of gang activity. But 49 says an associate of a rival gang. So because they wrote that in there, and they didn't have to, that's not part of the malice murder statute by any means, but they chose to allege it that way. And so within the four corners of this indictment, of which Mr. Farley is entitled to an indictment perfect in substance and form, here it's duplicative. Had they not put that, it wouldn't be duplicative. But what I submit to the state, what different fact is alleged in counts 50 and 51 that's not alleged in count 49? Because in count 49, they say it's an associate of a rival gang. So if you say someone has an associate in a rival gang, by inference, you're saying that that person is in a gang. And so essentially, count 49 alleges Mr. Farley to be in a gang, and it alleges that the person killed was a rival of the gang that Mr. Farley is supposedly in. So count 50 and count 51 that allege the criminal street gang activity with the murder of Mr. Drinks as the subject matter, Your Honor, those are both duplicative of count 49 because they included count 49 as gang activity. So looking within the four corners of the substance of these three counts, there's nothing different in count 51 or 50 that we don't already have in count 49.
Okay, so he's basically asking for count 49 to be thrown out, because what the state is alleging in count 49 is repeated in count 50 and 51, just with the additive with gang in it. And let's see how what will happen with that.
For that motion, yes, Judge.
Okay, talk to me about the unconstitutionality of the gang statute.
Sure, Judge. So
And you understand the Supreme Court already considered that issue, right?
I understand, Your Honor. I don't think the Supreme Court's going to consider anything with regards to Mr. Farley because there won't be a conviction. But just out of caution, I do think maybe the United States Supreme Court or possibly some other court might review this, Judge. So I do. Right.
What's your good faith basis to challenge?
Yeah, I can explain that, Judge. The good faith basis is that Rule 418 in combination with the Georgia gang statute just completely flies in the face of the most fundamental aspect of our government, which is checks and balances between the three branches. You know, we have Your Honor representing the judicial branch. We have the state representing the executive branch. We have myself and the other attorneys representing individuals and people in the state of Georgia. And so how it's supposed to work is that we're supposed to be checking each other. We're supposed to be balancing each other. But what we have here is, Your Honor, Rule 418 just completely circumventing Rule 404B and rendering 404B meaningless and robbing both the people of the state of Georgia and the judicial branches of the state of Georgia of any sort of check on the authority of the state to circumvent the legislature, who's elected by the people of Georgia to write the statutes, who wrote 404B. And Your Honor, under 404B, as the court knows, other acts are not allowed in for propensity. They're only allowed in for limited purposes like intent, motive, absence of mistake. Exactly, Judge. And what's the huge problem here is that our grand jury proceedings are entirely secret. They're not transcribed, and there is no mechanism for either the people of Georgia or the jurists of Georgia to check the state to stop them from doing what this leaves open to be done. So, for example, which is, Your Honor, they might in bad faith, let's say we have a murder case, and that person accused of murder has an aggravated assault, but there is no other way to introduce that except for propensity. So the judge would say, as the state would know, that, you know, I'm denying your 404B, this is propensity, that's not allowed. Our legislature does not allow propensity. However, 418 does allow propensity. And that's what makes the gang statute and rule in combination with Rule 418 so unconstitutional under the United States Constitution. Because what's to stop the state?
Oh, he's challenging the RICO, I think. I wish I had Sean on. He could maybe explain this. But it sounds like he's challenging the RICO because they are getting into prior bad acts to prove something current, which is not allowed with the 404B. But that is I believe the thought behind a RICO charge is to circumvent normal practices when it comes to gangs or mafias. So that's an interesting challenge.
In a secret, untranscribed grand jury proceeding in bad faith, just throw on a gang charge onto the murder charge, then... Right, Your Honor, but there's no one to check them. They're doing it in secret, and it's untranscribed, so there's no one to hold them accountable. We have rules, but without enforcement and accountability, the rule is meaningless. And so 418, in combination with the Georgia gang statute, has made 404B meaningless because all they have to do is throw a gang charge on there in violation of the rules of ethics, which happens from time to time, and they can choose to violate that behind closed doors, untranscribed, and then they can throw up their hands at the end of the trial and say, oh, the directed verdict got granted. We didn't know that was going to happen, wink, wink, but they did know. And the reason they did it and put it on there, even though they knew it would be dismissed by directed verdict, is that so then they can use 418 instead of 404B and then bring in, for example, a past aggravated assault for propensity, which is exactly what the legislature didn't want the state to ever be allowed to do. And so there is no... Right, Your Honor, but if we didn't have the gang statute, then we couldn't accuse someone of gang activity, and then we couldn't apply 418. We would have to apply 404B, and we wouldn't be talking about propensity. But
I can't hear you in the back.
So you understand that evidence under our evidence code, Title 24, may be used sometimes for differing purposes, right? So, right?
yes, Judge.
So under the gang statute in 418, it's a little different than 404B and the other purposes for which evidence is admitted, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And that's just exactly, it is the existence of that, Your Honor, that I find to be just totally unconstitutional because now there is no way to do checks and balances. It's just whatever the state wants.
The legislature wrote or enacted the gang statute and they enacted 418, right?
Yes.
So they obviously had knowledge of 404B, correct?
Yes.
All right. So, I understand your argument. Is there anything else you wanna put forth?
No, Judge.
Okay.
I just ask you to grant that, and then the state can appeal something for once instead of us, appealing everything.
Okay. All right. Ms. Rosenwasser? Any other motions? I think I've dealt with the other. Only one is the 418, and I'm waiting on Mr. Carlson.
Yes, Judge. The only other thing I have that I
agree.
failed to mention is I did have an amended discovery motion that the state's mostly accommodated, but there's one aspect they're not accommodating that I'd like the court to
What is that?
compel them. They relatively recently sent out these gang profiles on each of the defendants, and then nowhere in the discovery does it say who wrote those profiles and when they were written. And their written response to my motion says, well, you can just call the law enforcement witnesses. But that's exactly why I need Your Honor to compel them to tell me which law enforcement witness produced which gang profiles and when, because even though the state might try to say that's not exculpatory, the discovery statute says it's not only exculpatory things that they have to give us, but anything that might lead to something exculpatory. So the way they've described this gang profile of Mr. Farley, I think they wrote that up after this case already started. And if that's the case, that definitely impacts, my absolute theory of innocence.
Have you had any conversations with Ms. Rosenwasser or Mr. Smith or anybody else in regards to this issue?
No, Judge, only just through our written responses to the
And
motion.
why don't you have a conversation with her about that? Madam, is it that are you all willing to, or can you give him that particular information?
Your Honor, I don't want to speak out of turn. If I would just request Mr. Farley contact the trial team. I would just request Mr. Farley contact the trial team later to get an answer on that. I do not want to speak out of turn, at least without confirming to them. If you'd come up to me about this earlier, I could have relayed that message.
Okay.
Yeah, we got one competent expert, and now we're back to shenanigans. Apparently, and this I didn't know about RICO charge, that the state can hold a grand jury indictment in secret with no transcripts. And that, in my opinion, is a clear violation of discovery and what's it called? First of all, if they hold a secret grand jury presenting God knows what kind of evidence, and then you're not allowed to get the transcripts, I can't see how that. Whoever wrote that law should never wrote any laws. Jeez, yeah.
So why don't you have a conversation with Ms. Love or Ms. Hilton? And then if it continues to be an issue, I'll certainly deal with that, okay?
Yes, Judge.
Hold on, we got Mr. Carlson here who can talk about 418. Do you want to go ahead and finish your 418 argument, sir? And then I can let Mr. Carlson respond to that?
No, Your Honor, just to perfect the record, I also challenged the gang statute for violating freedom of speech and freedom of association, but I don't have further argument about that. I just have it in my motion.
Young lawyer.
Everything I object to about 418, I've already said to the court.
All right, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Your Honor. On behalf of Mr. Eppinger, I wanted to join in Mr. Menendez's motion.
David, if you ever listen to Mr. Harvey, I hate to cite to him all the time. I hate to cite to him all the time, but he did you all such a solid. He said, look, unless you opt out, everybody else gets to opt in, right?
Well, yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so add to it.
I'm going to add it specifically as it relates to Mr. Eppinger.
Okay, so let's take care of that.
Yeah, what this judge has done prior, because he was sick of hearing every lawyer getting up and saying virtually the same thing, the same objections, is that if one person, one of the lawyers, go up and have a motion, an objection, unless the other attorneys opt out, they support the motion or the testimony or the objection. And that saves a lot of time. It didn't help because we are still here. This, by the way, was in January. The trial should have started mid-January. It still haven't started. Yay!
Yes, Your Honor.
But if you start replicating, I'm going to cut you off, all right?
Your Honor, the court is aware of Mr. Menendez's arguments.
Just heard it.
Just like to say.
And read the motion.
Yes, Your Honor. As it
Okay.
relates to my client, Mr. Eppinger, we would contend that I believe it's counts.
Exactly. We don't know because in most countries, they don't
I believe
care
it's
anything.
counts 38 and 39 of, no, I'm sorry, 28 and 29 of this matter, which charged my client with possession of a firearm by a first offender. The two counts are exactly written the exact same. They did not allege any different information whatsoever. And this counts 34 and 35, Your Honor. They allege that my client was in possession of a firearm on a particular date after having been convicted, placed on first offender for a particular crime. It is the same crime, the same date is listed in counts 34 and 35. There is no additional information required or added in this that would differentiate these two counts, Your Honor. So based on the similar arguments made before, we do believe that these counts are duplicative and should not be included in the indictment, Your Honor. Well, at least one of them should not. Thank you.
That it?
Yes, that's it, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. All right, Mr. Carlson, can you speak to Mr. Menendez and by implication, the rest of the defendants who have specifically decided to opt out are seeking to or have this court declare Georgia Rule of Evidence 418 unconstitutional. So if you would speak to that, I would appreciate it.
May it please the court, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
And if I may, Judge, approach the court reporter with my car.
You may.
Is he asking her out?
Your Honor, again, Mike Carlson, Executive District Attorney on behalf of the state, responding to the constitutional challenge. I believe it's actually to 1615-4, the charging provision of Georgia's Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act, as well as Official Code of Georgia.
Georgia Street Gang and Terrorism. Why is it that every time a state, country are trying to get through crap laws and crap regulations, they take something here and they add terrorism? Oh, it's so... and that is just to circumvent actual discovery, actual rules. Let's add on terrorism. Or...
Won't somebody please think of the children?
it's either terrorism or think of the children, and all of a sudden, every rule of law, every due process is thrown out the window. I am so sick of it.
24-4-418, which is an evidence code provision that exclusively applies to cases charged under OCGA 1615-4, and that is by language of the statute. So, Your Honor, let's take a look first what we have here. These are essentially facial challenges to both of these statutes before the court. There's no acknowledgement in the briefing that at least has been reviewed by this assistant district attorney of the controlling or persuasive authority involved. And that begins with the fact of a presumption that a Georgia statute is constitutional, presumption that the challengers, the court knows, must rebut in cases like State versus Brannan, BRANNAN, 267 Georgia 315, 267 Georgia 315, that's a 1996 case, sets forth. Also, in a facial challenge such as this, the opponents have to demonstrate that there is no set of facts under which the Gang Act or 1615-4 would be valid. A case for that out.
That sounds amazingly political. That all of a sudden, if the state chooses to bring forward this kind of charge, it is up to the defense to prove that it isn't. And that is turning the weight of, yeah. Politicians. Let's make something sound good. Screw the law.
out of the 11th Circuit is Benning versus Georgia, 391 Fed 3rd, 1299, 391 Fed 3rd, 1299. That's an 11th Circuit
Lord,
case from 2004. So accordingly, these challenges should be denied and the motion should be denied. Now let's take a look first at the challenge, which, and again, my apologies for not being here for all of the argument, but based on what I did hear and based on the briefing, is a First Amendment challenge. Well, that was dispensed with, Your Honor, by our Supreme Court in a 2009 decision, Rodriguez versus State. 284 Georgia 803, 284 Georgia 803. Now, Rodriguez was strictly a case under OCGA 1615-4A, that's Alpha Judge, the primary charging provision of the Street Gang Act. But notably in Rodriguez, the court
Street Gang and Terrorists Act. Pure political.
explained. And the late Justice's
I
opinion
remember that.
affirming Judge Hancock of DeKalb County's decision pointed out that the gang statute prosecutes conduct, not association and not expression. And I'll read a quote from the case. Criminal gang activity, quote, is not protected activity even when committed by a group exercising their constitutional right of free association, because, of course, there is no constitutional right to commit criminal gang activity. And when that criminal gang activity is committed by an individual who is a member or an associate of a criminal street gang and participates in the gang through the commission of that criminal gang activity, then the additional offense of a violation of 1615-4A can be brought. Now,
That sounds like a circular argument. That you're not the state says this is a street gang. The state says that person is associated with a street gang. And then that person does something that might not even be related to the street gang. But since they have already associated him with the street gang, it becomes a part of the Street Gang and Terrorist Act. That's circular argument and political BS.
there is a complaint here about 1615-4B. That is the commission of those offenses in order to increase or maintain status in the gang. Again, that is criminalizing behavior, not expression. So as to the double jeopardy claim that we saw there, at the outset, let's direct the court and the record and opposing counsel to OCGA 16-15-4M as in Mary. That is a statutory non-merger provision that is housed within the Street Gang Act itself. And our Supreme Court and our Court of Appeals have specifically dealt with the issue of whether or not someone being charged with multiple subsections of the Street Gang Act and being sentenced and convicted, or convicted and sentenced for those subsections as well as the predicate offense, violates the Constitution. No merger, no violation in that case, Judge. And I want to take us first to the Court of Appeals case on that, Judge, which is Nolly versus the state, wherein the specific quote is that in Nolly, let me actually, before I get to the quote, the defendant was charged with more subsections than any of the defendants here were. And that was actually, there was an A, B, D, and E violation in addition to the underlying predicate. And the courts there said in Nolly.
Now, I understand that street gangs must be dealt with. And it might sometimes be really hard because people don't talk. But do you really want to throw out the rule of law because of that? Because the slippery slope is very, very high on stuff like that. or very imminent, might be the correct word. Street Gang and Terrorist Act, and subsections after subsections. That tells me that there was an original act called the Terrorism and Street Gang Act. And once it was in place, once a law is in place, it's virtually impossible to get rid of it. You can only, at least here in the European Union, if you want to get rid, you can't get rid of a law. You can only rewrite it. And that might be the same case in the United States, that at a certain point you can't get rid of a law. You can only rewrite it. And it sounds like after this Street Gang and Terrorist Act was done, they added on to it. That's what it sounds like, at least.
From the Court of Appeals, and I'll have that citation to you in a second, Your Honor, from my co-counsel. There was no violation of merger or double jeopardy rules. Lupo versus State from the Supreme Court, 300 Georgia 233. That's a 2016 case. The gang activity counts did not merge as that crime and malice murder each require a proof element that the other does not. And of course, that's consistent with federal and other state and Georgia RICO authority as well, Your Honor, which I'm happy to provide. Then there was Anthony versus State. Again, this is at 303 Georgia 399. We previously had rejected the idea that all gang offenses must be gathered into a single gang activity charge. So the subsections of the Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act all have different elements. Those elements are different than the predicate offenses, so they all can be charged, convicted, and sentenced separately. And in fact, there is a statutory non-merger provision within the act itself. So, Your Honor, the constitutional claims fail in terms of 1615-4. So now let's look at a later...
Can only be repelled in a higher court. This has been approved in State Supreme Court and State Appellate Court. But I don't know how the Georgia RICO Act, if they have ever gone above that to the United States Supreme Court to be challenged. Or if there's, I don't know. Let's continue. Listen. He sounds more like a politician than an actual attorney.
Enacted statute 24-4-418. Now, this is a provision that is unique to Georgia and only applies to cases that are charged under Georgia's Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act. And it's patterned after, Judge, the same evidence code provisions that apply in sexual offenses and lawsuits arising from acts of sexual misconduct. Georgia has those at 24.
Okay, we heard from today. We have heard from medical autopsy guy who was actually competent. Then there was a challenge to the RICO Act in itself, because it violates, according to the lawyers, it violates the 404B. The right to receive information or something of that sort. This guy is the elected district attorney. This is the, of some sort. And he is now telling how the RICO Act in Georgia has been approved in higher courts and stuff like that. And that is why the judge shall not approve of the defense lawyer's motion to dismiss some charges. So now you're up to speed. Welcome back.
4-4-4, 13, 14, and 15. They're in the federal rules of evidence under the same numbers. And I believe, Your Honor, they're also in the military rules of evidence under the same numbers. So the question is, does the admission of character evidence somehow in and of itself violate the Constitution? There's been no case law provided to that effect by the opposite side. And while the U.S. Supreme Court, I believe, has yet to definitively answer that question, there is certainly no controlling case law to.
Okay, so it has not been to the U.S. Supreme Court yet. But that's it. Until the U.S. Supreme, if the Supreme Court and Appellate Court in Georgia says it's good, nobody can do anything about it until either some lawyers are doing damn good arguments at, for instance, this trial. Now I doubt that the judge will approve it. Well, we know that he didn't, because they continued moving forward with this trial. But in order for Georgia's RICO Act to be repealed, it has to go up to either politicians rewrite it, or the U.S. Supreme Court will repeal it. So then that might take a while.
Say that these statutes, which are used and approved around the country, somehow violate the Constitution. So we ask a question: is there a due process problem here? Well, Rule 403 applies, Your Honor. And although it is a presumptive admissibility statute that does indeed allow other acts that qualify as criminal gang activity to be admitted for any purpose, including criminal propensity, those.
If they claim it's gang activity, they can use it for any purpose. Jesus Christ.
Parallel the rules that apply in sex offenses, in federal courts and in Georgia courts, and quite frankly, in other states, California, for example, Your Honor, there are similar rules that apply in elder abuse cases, special needs abuse cases, domestic violence cases, as well as in non-sexual child abuse cases.
Oh,
those have been upheld, and you'll see in our brief we've provided you with jurisdiction after jurisdiction after jurisdiction where rules that parallel this one, in fact, have been upheld constitutionally by federal and state courts around the country. An additional case on that, Your Honor, State versus Gee, G-E-E, that is at 388 Wisconsin 2nd, 68, 388 Wisconsin 2nd, 68, a 2019 case, and where they say, they quote the United States Supreme Court of Dowling versus U.S. 493 U.S. 342, 493 U.S. 342 at 1990, whether the introduction of this kind of evidence is so extremely unfair that its admission violates fundamental concepts of justice. Well, Your Honor, this type of evidence, even without the gang statute involved, even without 418, is generally admissible. The rules of intrinsic evidence are relaxed, generally speaking, when it comes to racketeering cases federally. And of course, in sexual offenses, even without a 413 or a 414, those were more easily admitted under our former evidence code. And just to go to a military case on that, Judge, U.S. versus McDonald, 53, military justice 593, 53 military justice 593.
This is really
again a direct attack there on 413 and 14,
and it's allowed
on due process grounds, and just stating that a review of the pertinent appellate decisions indicates the courts have uniformly held that such constitutional concerns are satisfied by the proper application of the Rule 403 balancing test. So is this a statute that allows other acts in presumptively? Yes. Does it allow it in for all relevant purposes? Yes, but that was the design of the statute. In fact, it's right there in the enabling language of the statute in the preamble, quote, to improve the ability to prosecute street gang terrorism and provide for the admissibility of similar transaction evidence in prosecutions for criminal street activity. And that, of course, corresponds directly with the purposes of the Street Gang Act under OCGA 1615-2 to eradicate that kind of crime. And those are the words of our General Assembly.
Okay, Nanya, I've seen you have talked about a few other things that is going on. Send the different things to my mail, and I will bring them up on my Finally Friday stream, where we bring up stuff that has happened on a more casual way. I can't cover them all, but I can bring them up. Yeah. And Gigi just posted my email. So, yay. Hey, Fedorevsky is here. Fedorevsky is here. Hey, good day. You have entered a crap show. This guy you are seeing here is excusing the Georgia RICO Act. It's not against the rules because the politicians wrote the rules so everything can be admissible, even prior acts, unrelated acts, but that are done with people they can associate with this particular street gang. So, Jesus.
As part of and a response to a state of crisis. So the constitutional challenge to 418 fails. 418 applies. There's not a due process consideration here because, again, the statute is tailored to these considerations, and certainly criminal street gang members committing criminal street gang acts are not a protected class that would raise equal protection concerns. So now we go to this last issue of, so the constitutional challenge to 418 fails on its face. So now we get to the issue of whether or not the other acts evidence, the uncharged misconduct to be admitted under Rule 418 requires a prior conviction under 1615-4. That issue was just argued in front of the Georgia Court of Appeals successfully by.
But that's just it. The original RICO was to go after the mob. And since then, since 1970, they have amended it so they can catch more people under the same act.
Assistant District Attorney Rosenwasser in the case of State versus McKinney. I've got the Lexus site for that. 2022 Georgia Appeals, Lexus 545. 2022 Appeals, Lexus 545, where the Court of Appeals noted that the language of Rule 418 itself does not require a nexus in terms of the other acts evidence to be brought in between the gang, the crime, and the defendant. Only that.
Today. So let's just pop over to there, and I will start day 4 instead. And hopefully we will be more entertained. You need to entertain us. Yes, I'm trying. Where's day 4? There. I will just check. Oh. Dun, dun, dun. There. Full screen. And back with the pump. Forward and see what will happen. Okay, let's see what day 4 brings us. Hey, Indigo. The first hour and a half was one competent expert being allowed in. One. After 3.5 days, we got one. And then on the second half of day 3, they had a motions hearing about the RICO Act in itself, but futile. So let's go on with day 4 and see what's going on. Here's the judge. Get on with it.
Individual. All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go ahead and first put on the record in the matter of those particular individuals in indictment 22 SC 183572. I'm going to go ahead and call roll first, and then we'll go ahead and take up the preliminary issues and get to the day's business. Let's see, Khalif Adams.
Good morning, Your Honor. Tamara Harris.
Good morning again.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, madam.
He does a
Okay,
roll
Durante
call.
Beebe.
every morning because
All right.
there are
Good
so
morning,
damn
sir.
many people.
Mr.
Talk through this.
Mr. Stillwell. Good morning, sir. I'm not sure that. Just check that out.
Get on with it. Hey, David.
Okay,
wanna
Ms.
join?
Rosenwasser and ladies and gentlemen,
I'll send David a link.
Mr. Hall's outside?
Investigator Hall is outside.
All right, let's go ahead and bring him in, then, okay?
No worries.
Investigator Hall, good morning. I'm Judge
boring day.
Glanville. If you could go ahead and please approach the
People
witness
can,
stand. Once you
do,
get there, you'd be so kind to turn and face Deputy
replay
Talk.
coup.
No, Lieutenant Gibson be sworn as a witness, please.
Raise your right hand. You swear in front of testimony to the court the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Quentin Hall.
Go.
Can you spell your first name for us, sir?
Quinton.
Hall, common spelling?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Is the witness's microphone on?
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Investigator Hall, what is your current position?
I'm a gang investigator at the Cobb County Jail.
And how long have you been at that position?
3 years.
Do you have any previous law enforcement experience?
I was the detention officer for the sheriff's office as well before I became an investigator.
And how long were you a detention officer?
Since 2014.
Okay. Does your current job or any of your past jobs involve investigating gang members or classifying gang members at the jail?
My current job.
Can you explain your duties in relation to gang members in your current job?
I interview and classify inmates at the jail. I also investigate incidents at the jail that may or may not be gang related.
And when you say classify inmates, can you explain that?
I interview and see if they are or not gang members.
And why is it important to find out whether or not an inmate is a gang member?
It's for the safety and security of the jail, individuals in the jail.
Hey, David.
Hello. Hey, I didn't know you were streaming. I would have sent everybody over. I sent them to Salvador, though, so they'll have fun over there with Chandler Hollerton or whatever. But this is a crazy case that you're covering.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
Young Thug's thing. Is this? Yeah. Was this today or when was this?
No, this is we are still in the Daubert hearing from January.
Oh,
because the trial still haven't restarted.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a weird case.
Yeah, they restarted the jury selections about a little over a month ago. They got to day 2 and
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I heard the juror. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And I don't
amazing.
know if that particular juror was from that or the previous, because this trial should have started mid-January. They started after the Daubert hearing. They started with jury selections. They went on for a few days and then stopped because shenanigans and stuff.
Yeah,
And then-
this case just sounds weird all the way around.
Yeah.
But hey, chat. Hi everybody. GG, I see you all in there.
Yes, there should be a dot between first and last name in my mail address.
Kim.
Yeah.
But welcome. Yeah. So where are we now in the process?
Now we are day 4
Okay.
of the Daubert hearing. So we are midway through the
Alright.
Daubert hearings. And just before you got on, they had a big argument between defense lawyers and then even the big gun was there to defend this RICO case, the Georgia RICO Act, because they claim that the Rule 418 was in violation of 404B. But then they explained that, well, the RICO Act is written in accordance to the Georgia Street Gang and Terrorist Act.
Okay.
Because why not add terrorist into legislation to get things through?
Everything's
now
a
it is
freaking
allowed.
terrorist act.
Yeah. So now, since 2009, well, whenever it was, it has been upheld in state appellate court and state Supreme Court. It has not been challenged in the U.S. Supreme Court. So, yeah, it's valid. They can bring in prior acts. They can hold a secret grand jury with no transcripts.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that needs. I mean, what happened to just a simple assault? Now everything's a terrorist attack or a terrorist act, rather.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you know, if it isn't terrorism.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
That's right. Yeah.
And the big shot district attorney explained that things that can come into a RICO act a RICO trial in Georgia, it's so broad. It can be domestic violence if that person is associated with the street gang. I mean,
okay, that's weird.
Yeah, so it's extremely broad, and yeah, might have been.
So here's the thing about a terrorist act or a hate crime, right? You're essentially creating Sharia law in these westernized countries, because Sharia law treats people differently based off of their ethnicity, their religion, their gender. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. If you're a certain race and you do something to another certain race, then you're treated differently. That's Sharia law. That's
yeah.
I don't know.
And it applies because it was such a bad circular argument as well for this, because more or less, if that person is does a street gang related crime, and that person is associated with a street gang, and it was a complete circular argument that the state decides who's a street gang and who's associated with a street gang, and it is up to the defense to prove them wrong.
Yeah. What happened to freedom of association, right?
Yeah, but that was what big shot district attorney said, that freedom of speech is
freedom of
association does not apply to the RICO Act, because they're a street gang and they are a crime gang.
I don't know how much
criminal
that's
gang.
challenged.
What?
I said I don't know how much that's been challenged in the Supreme Court. I can't imagine that it's going to get a lot of love from the Supreme Court, but the bigger cases are not because we like the defendants, right? If you look at a lot of our fundamental cases, the case that established your right to stand on a corner and say whatever you want to say probably came from a Nazi doing that, you know? And so a lot of the cases that establish your rights are ones that you do not necessarily agree with their opinions of. And those are the ones that actually need the protecting because they protect all of our rights, including these guys. This is a weird case that they're charging them all. It's just weird procedurally.
Yeah. But the guy who is on the stand now is street gang investigator Quentin Hall.
All right. Why are we Dauberting him?
I have no...
Expert in street crimes?
Yeah, he is the one inside the prisons. He is the one who categorizes which is in which gang, apparently. So, yeah, let's listen to this guy. Yeah.
There were inmates and sometimes the gang members themselves.
Okay. Have you taken any training classes in gangs?
Yes.
Can you tell me what trainings you've done?
I took a gang investigator certification course through the GGIA, the Georgia Gang Investigator Association, in 2021. I've been to the GGIA gang conferences in 2021 and 2022. I took a gang identification and recognition course through GIPSTIC 2022. I took a basic gang class in the Cobb County Sheriff's Office in 2016.
Okay, and are there ever any handouts or presentations done at those trainings that you can read and learn about?
Yes.
Okay. And have you read anything about classifying gang members or had that presented to you at the trainings?
Yes, I read things on identifying gang members.
Okay. And what work did you need to do to become a gang investigator at the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office?
I had to work in the jail for a certain amount of years to get gang experience to become an investigator.
Can you explain how working at the jail gave you that gang experience?
Being around the inmates every day, basically, and being around their everyday movements.
Okay. Can you describe that a little more? Do you speak to them?
Yes, I speak to them. I work around them. I pass out trays, take them to medical.
Do you ever listen to their jail calls or their communication?
What kind of expertise is this guy being qualified for?
Is there anything else like that you do?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right. It sounds like a fact witness.
Yeah, they just brought him up, and now they are Dauberting him.
Okay.
I interview inmates. I do cell searches to find different gang literature in cells. We check mail, things of that nature.
I'm going to stop you. What's gang literature?
Gang knowledge or information that the inmates might write down about what specific gang they're
Very
in.
much. Trust
me,
me, bro.
Can you give me an example of what gang literature might be?
It might have gang lingo, who is above them. They're saying that they would have to say their nickname or things of that nature.
Is that like an instruction manual for being in a gang?
Basically.
Okay.
This is all fact stuff. It's not expert stuff.
Yeah.
This is like a profiler
At this
saying,
point,
well, of course
Your
this
Honor, I'm
guy's
going
a
to
serial
move
killer
to
because I
admit
said he is.
State Exhibit, and I believe we're on 617. If I may approach the witness.
You can't, has that document already been sworn, already been shown or given in discovery to all defense counsel?
Yes, I have it here if anyone.
Okay, all right, then you may approach.
You know what?
See it.
Yeah.
It has been provided in discovery. Absolutely. No, that's fine. Yes, it's provided discovery. Yes, ma'am.
Ooh, yeah. One of my tattoos, I will bring it up like this. One of my
tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, that's a fact, right? This person has a tattoo. Are you in a gang?
This one.
Is that a gang tattoo?
No. No, it's not. I got it 25 years ago about. Since then, there's formed a gang in Denmark calls themselves 777. So I could be accused.
Don't go to Denmark and get in trouble.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the point, right? Of or the challenge to these types of witnesses is that, okay, well, he has a tattoo, so therefore he is a member of the gang.
Yeah.
Well, no, he got the tattoo in Sweden, didn't even know it existed in Denmark until after he got the tattoo.
Yeah.
But they're going to label you as a gang member.
Yeah. No, I don't think so, because it's a form of gang that does not include people with my perplexion. But yeah,
I still want to know what this guy's being qualified as an expert for, or like. So here's the thing. In order to be qualified as an expert, you have to have some sort of particular knowledge that can assist the trier of fact in whatever they're trying to decide.
Yeah.
And what is it that the jury needs assistance in as it relates to gang member activities? Can't we just testify to the facts?
I wish I could answer.
It just seems dumb.
If I may approach the witness.
You can, madam.
Yes. Investigator Hall, do you recognize this document?
Yes,
How do you recognize this document?
I typed it.
What is this document?
My CV resume.
Okay. Does it there appear to be any major changes, additions, substitutions, solutions?
No.
Okay, Your Honor, at this point, the state would move to admit State's Exhibit 17 for the purposes of this hearing.
Any objection? All right, state 17 is admitted.
Okay.
What was state 17?
State.
My CV.
Your Hall,
Oh, his
do you
CV.
recognize this document?
Okay.
Yes,
How do you recognize this document?
I typed it.
What is this document?
My CV resume.
Okay. Does it there appear to be any major changes, additions, substitutions, solutions?
No.
Okay, Your Honor, at this point, the state would move to admit State's Exhibit 17 for the purposes of this hearing.
Any objection? All right, state 17 is admitted.
Investigator Hall, and if you need to refer to your CV, I can bring it back to you. Do you know about how many hours of gang training you've had? Would it help me to, would your recollection be refreshed with your CV? I may, Your Honor.
You may.
He wrote his CV but can't recollect how many hours of gang training he has.
If you can review that and look up what your recollection is.
Kitten.
It will be over 100 hours.
So, I'm sorry, I gotta repeat it. Is your recollection refreshed?
Yes,
Okay. How many hours of gang-related training have you had, sir?
that's maybe over 100 hours.
Okay. Now, have you had interactions with gang members personally? They've told you about their gangs and their
Yes,
affiliations at the jail?
yes,
And to clarify, this is the DeKalb County Jail only, is that correct?
yes.
Okay. Based on your experience and your training, are you aware of any gangs that exist in the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes,
Excuse me, let me object to the hearsay nature of this. This is both hearsay and there is a confrontation problem with what he is about to tell us. And it's from in custody individuals. It would be to a law enforcement officer and would not be testimonial.
Captain, have fun. I just got this camera.
We are qualifying him as an expert in gangs. It's for the purposes of determining whether he can testify as an expert in gangs in the DeKalb County Jail.
He's a
So these
trusted
objections
bro.
would be right were he to testify at trial, but right now we're trying to show the court that he is an expert in the gangs in the DeKalb County Jail, that he's become aware of them, how he's becoming aware of them, his experience. We're trying to go to the Daubert factors, not, it doesn't go against the defendants in the same way that a hearsay would at the.
I'll overrule the objection, Mr. Harvey.
Of course.
Continuing objection.
Sure. Absolutely. Go ahead, madam.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. And sir, what are the main gangs that you've become familiar with at the DeKalb County Jail?
Bloods, Crips, and GDs.
Are there any specific sects of blood that you become aware of?
Yes,
Can you tell me what they are?
G-Shine, Sex, Money, Murder, Billy.
Okay, and you don't see much of YSL at the DeKalb County Jail, right?
No.
Okay.
So why is he here?
Do you ever investigate gang members at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
And how do you do those investigations?
I listen to phone calls, conduct cell searches to collect items in their cells, such as the gang literature. We check mail, and we also interview inmates.
Okay. And how, if I can ballpark, about how many gang members in the DeKalb County Jail have you ever interviewed or spoken with?
Over 50.
Okay. How many hours of jail calls have you listened to from gang members within the DeKalb County Jail? If you can ballpark it for us.
Over 1,000.
1,000 hours? Thank you. Do you ever review any social media accounts from people that might get cell phones within the jail?
Yes.
Okay. Is that something that's happened, that people have gotten cell phones in the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Okay.
Could you please silence your phones?
Okay.
And I am
And do you ever
everywhere.
look at tattoos on gang members?
Yes.
Are you familiar with different gang tattoos?
Yes.
Okay. And you generally review communications between.
What's the difference between a gang tattoo and a couple of and a bunch of people having a YSL tattoo? What that is the record label?
Isn't it the activities of them?
Yeah.
Like the activities of the people with the tattoos. And if that is in fact the case, is it less about the tattoos and more about the activities? So then why are we concerned with the tattoos?
Exactly.
Gang members within the jail as well?
Yes.
Okay. Are people ever prosecuted as a result of your investigations?
Yes.
And so I know what are some common actions that gang affiliated individuals at the DeKalb County Jail might take that warrant your investigations?
They usually commit
lesbian
physical
chat.
altercations
What's going on over
or
there?
assaults
Wait, hang on, I
together
might wanna go
at
to
the
the
jail.
Is that assaults of other rival gang members, or essentially is it gang related?
Or it could be people that's not gang related or other gang members.
So I guess if I'm understanding is that gang members, if put together, may assault others.
Yes.
Is that a lot of the bulk of your investigations?
Yes.
Okay. Now, were you trained how to identify and classify inmates at the DeKalb County Jail that are gang members?
Yes.
Okay. How were you trained? Can you describe that?
We were trained to conduct the interviews to look for certain tattoos that might be an identifier, listening to phone calls, conducting our cell searches, trying to find gang literature in their cells.
Okay. And was that a specific method, or that was just general ways that you were taught to identify them?
Just general ways that I was taught.
Are there certain identifiers that you're
I
trained
can't
to look
imagine
for
the
and be
judge
as
is going to
specific as
qualify
you
this guy
can?
as an expert.
Yes. Through literature, it might be purposeful misspelling where they're crossing out a C and replacing with a B. Through phone calls, they might replace the C's with B's, or tattoos, it might be a 5-pointed star with the B inside or a
Could
flaming
be
B.
this,
It
could be
just
that.
depends on the
He's
person.
like a
Is that
conspiracy
all for
theorist.
one type of gang?
Yeah. But this is related to Jeff's trial, where they claim that Melly is a blood because he has been sent text where he does exchange the C for a B. Then the defense started their cross-examination and showed a bunch load of other text where he doesn't do it. So what does it? Yeah,
that doesn't make sense. Sometimes this is like people. Seriously, this is like conspiracy theorists. Sometimes people see like, "Ooh, there's a one there. What does that one mean?" Well, the one could mean that at one point in time, it's just reading into what they want to see.
Yeah, it's a complete subjective. It's not a science, and if it's not a science, he can't be an expert.
Yeah,
this
kind
is
of the idea.
Yeah, this should be trial only, not a Daubert hearing.
Gang that you discussed?
Yes.
What gang is that?
Bloods.
Okay. And do other police forces or agencies attend the trainings that you went to as well?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I know you said you were particularly aware of the Bloods gang at the DeKalb County Jail.
Yes.
Are you aware of the sex money murder gang at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Have you ever classified inmates as being members of the sex money murder gang?
Yes.
What are ways that you have classified? What are certain indicators if you're classifying someone as a sex money murder member?
They might have a tattoo that says Pete Boy, is reference to Pistol Pete, who's over the Sex Money Murder Bloods. They might have something that says Blazer, where that's part of a saying of them, or we might find also gang literature in their sales where it just flat out says Sex Money Murder.
Okay. Now, are you aware of have you had interactions with sex money murders at, sex money murder members at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Okay. Ballpark about how many members have you spoken with or associates?
Maybe over 20.
Okay. And are you aware if there's any leadership positions within the sex money murder gang at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Okay. And how have you determined who might be a leader of the sex money murder organization at the DeKalb County Jail?
Through phone calls that the inmates make.
Can you kind of describe what might be in those phone calls to lead you to your conclusions?
For trial.
You might hear inmates say whoever the person is over this is running things as far as murder in the jail.
Okay, so when you say running things as far as murder in the jail, what does that phrase mean to a layperson that might not understand that?
They're the person that they have to answer to before anything happens in the jail. As far as the gang.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, before someone is harmed in the jail, they have to go to a leadership position and confirm?
Yes.
Has that been your understanding from your past investigations?
Yes.
He's just like skipping it.
Mr. Dorsey. Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, State. Sudi Chala Jimenez on behalf of Mr. Dorsey. How you doing, Investigator Hall?
Good, how you doing?
Good. I have a few questions for you.
Yes, sir.
All right. This first, I'm gonna try to go in the same way that the state did. Let's start from the beginning. Let's start with your training. You said you received quite a bit of training, but most of it has been experience that you learned from working at the jail. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You've always been worked at the jail or a detention officer, correct?
Yes.
You've never worked the streets?
No.
You've never actually had a patrol car and go out there and drive and pull people over?
No.
Have you ever conducted any interviews of anybody that's not in custody?
No.
Okay. When you talk to individuals that are in custody, do you Mirandize them? Do you advise them of their rights?
When it's dealing with a charge, yes.
Okay. In this case today, we are dealing with charges. You said that you've spoken with some people that you understood to be sex, money, murder. Did you Mirandize those people when you spoke with them?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this line of questioning. I think the way that he did his interviews.
Yeah, I sustain the objection.
Thank you.
All right, yeah.
Wait, what? Why?
Now let's go back
Isn't that
and
how
focus on your training. You've received quite a bit of training, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
You actually testified when asked how many hours of gang-related training, you say you don't remember, right?
Yes.
And then you had to have your recollection refreshed. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you have so much training, sometimes it's just too much. You can't keep up with all of that. Is that right?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. That was argumentative.
I sustain the objection, Mr. Flynn.
All right. So when you were refreshed, and then you
You
got a
say,
chance
how
to
does
look at
it say
states
all the
Exhibit
objections?
17. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you have that in front of you?
No.
Your Honor, may I get a state's exhibit and permission to publish?
Captain,
It's me.
Nicholas is
so
right now.
Who are you going to publish it to?
Captain's like, is anyone streaming tonight? Yeah, Nicholas is right now.
What am I? Chopped herring? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm here. Later, if
I do like the attorney's jacket, Iris, by the way. I agree with her.
I'll see who might be on later on. I don't know how long Salvador will go on.
I think Megan Fox is streaming with Flux because Flux had a stream tonight and she moved it because she said she's going on with Megan Fox. Probably talk about the whole YouTube shutdown thing, but I have no idea what time that's starting.
Okay. I will check. We can listen to this guy.
Where you see it, you see it at the same time. So
I don't need to. I mean, I'll have.
That's also the benefit of
I have a copy of it, so it's fine. I don't think you need to
Oh,
publish
is
it.
it okay if I hand him my copy? It
Yeah,
is
that's
the same.
fine. That's fine.
All right.
Did she object to him having a copy? No.
No, she
You
objected though
testified
to
that you have,
how he did the test or how he did the questioning, and that was sustained. And then the judge said, "I'm just going to sustain all the objections."
Hmm.
So it sounds like the judge is going to let this guy in as an expert, which makes no sense to me.
I'm looking around here, and I'm only seeing Lincoln Kane and Salvador on live now.
I'll find it.
Yeah.
I'll find it. I'll send you a link.
And I have here fluxing around.
Yeah, she was.
Oh, upcoming Megan Fox live, but I don't see when that starts.
Yeah, I don't either. I'll ask Flux.
Yeah, let's.
after refreshing recollection, you testified you have had over 100 hours of training. Is that right?
Yes.
You want to do a little math with me?
Yes.
All right. Can you please tell me, according to your resume, you received gang basics in DeKalb County Sheriff's Office on October 2016. Is that correct?
Yes.
How many hours was that?
8 hours.
Okay. And then after that, let's say 8. After that, you also received narcotics and gang investigation from Dobbins Air Reserve Base on December 2019. How many hours you get there?
24.
Okay, 24. Next, basic gang investigator certificate course on Coweta County Sheriff's Office on May 2021. How many hours you get there?
8.
All right, so now we got 8 again. Then we got Georgia Gang Investigators Association Conference in Savannah, Georgia. Beautiful city. You don't know how many hours you got there?
Both of those conferences were a week long, so it was 8 hours for 5 days. So
you didn't put that here. Why didn't you put that on your resume?
I don't know, sir.
Okay. Now let's go to the last one. GPSTC, chip stack. That's how y'all call it, right?
Yes,
Gang
sir.
recognition and identification course, October 2022. And that was Gwinnett County Police Academy. How many hours is that?
24.
All right. So let's just add up the ones that you actually put a number of hours in there. How much does that add up to?
I don't think the math
Send me
test
a
is for
link.
you,
She sent me
Mr.
the one
Johnson.
for this.
Okay, just want to help you out, okay?
I asked Flux to send me a link to the Megan Fox.
66 hours.
66 hours. Would it surprise you to know that actually 8 plus 8 plus 24 plus 24 is 64?
64.
Okay, but you said 66.
Your Honor,
No,
I'm gonna object, whether he can do math is not relevant to whether he's a gang expert.
no, this is going towards his credibility. I mean, he testified after being refreshed.
You know what, you can cross in
Oh,
my
Megan
trial in
Fox
regards to that,
channel
but
will be
just stick with
streaming
the Daubert
in
issues.
15
All right.
minutes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
Thank you.
there you go.
Your Honor, is
So I will.
64 greater or less than 100?
Let's move on. Let's move on, Mr. Jimenez.
So you received over 100
Can't
hours
math.
of training, according to you.
This witness can't math. very
Most
well.
of that training,
What? Sorry, what did you say?
I said this witness can't math very well. And the judge is like, let's move on. Let's move on. They're not allowing this witness to be cross-examined on his method of of analysis, right? So I interviewed this. Well, how did you do the interview? Objection, sustained. Well, you know, you did all these calculations. Can you do like basic math? Objection, sustained.
But this is a Daubert hearing. They are supposed to ask him these questions. What is your analysis method? What is your hour? What is that?
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's kind of my like the big thing, questioning him about how he came to his determination. So he said, "Oh, I interviewed a bunch of people, and I came to my determination that way. That's how I learned what gang life is like, and all this stuff." Okay, great. How did you conduct those interviews? Where were they? Like, what questions did you ask? Those things are appropriate, right? The judge sustained the objection on that. So the judge is going to let this railroad through and let this guy in as an expert about just to opine. He's going to be able to opine about whatever.
Yeah.
has been pretty recent, hasn't it?
Yes.
You claim that you've had a chance to talk to a
for Darius Dorsey, is that right?
Yes, I didn't do his
get it already
classification,
up
but
there,
his
okay.
classification was done at the jail.
So you said you didn't know his classification, is that right?
I didn't do his classification, but his
So far as I know, she's not leaving YouTube. She was demonetized because she had a stream or a video out on criticizing the Pride movement.
Well, she wasn't criticizing anything. She was just talking about some of the nonsensical parts of it.
Yeah.
And they took all of her channel down.
Yeah.
And she got some of it up.
Mm.
And now she's talking about that.
Yeah. So I don't know what will go on that channel in 15 minutes, but we will go on and then redirect people there.
classification is in our files.
Okay, so why are you here if you are not the one that did the classification?
I'm here for the expertise of the gangs in the Cobb County Jail.
Okay, so as far as you know, you were just given a paper that says that he is sex, money, murder, is that right?
Yes, it's documented as
Okay.
sex, money, murder.
Who wrote this document classifying Mr. Dorsey as sex, money, murder?
An investigator that was on a unit at the time.
And what is that name?
Investigator name was Smith, Taylor Smith.
Taylor Smith. Does he
Yes.
know, is he still working with the cab office?
No.
And Taylor Smith, according to your knowledge of your business records, is the one that had a chance to interview Mr. Dorsey?
Yes.
The other
Did you ever interview Mr. Dorsey?
No.
Okay. So all you know is from we're lawyers, a business record that somebody gave it to you, right?
I don't know.
Yes.
Now I'm going to show you what I will mark as, hold on.
We are over 2 hours.
With you, whatever document you determine that my client is
Fuck this prosecution.
is claimed to be sex, money, murder?
No, I don't have it.
Do you remember that document?
Yes.
All right. What was that document called?
A gang classification.
Gang classifications. And then what does that document show?
It shows tattoos. It has basic information of the individual, and it also has a narrative that the person who classified the inmate wrote or typed.
Did that document that you reviewed, where you determined that someone else has classified Mr. Dorsey as sex, money, murder, did that document have any information about the interview that was conducted?
Yes.
Okay. And in that interview, do you remember what questions were asked?
No.
Okay. What type of questions would be asked to determine if somebody is or is not in a gang?
Usually they would just ask the person, are you in a gang?
And according to your memory, did Mr.
Usually I just ask the guy if he's in a gang.
That's what he said. Sorry, I was distracted by my son. That's what he just said. How do you determine? He said, usually I just ask him if he's in a gang.
What type of questions would be asked to determine if somebody is or is not in a gang?
Usually they would just ask the person, are you in a gang?
And according to your memory, did Mr. Dorsey answer in the affirmative to that question?
Yes.
He did. And what did, according to your memory, what did he answer?
He stated he was a sex, money, murder, blood.
Okay. And again, this is a document and record that has been given to the state. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we should have a copy of that somewhere.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in that document, other than, hello, Mr. Inmate, what is your affiliation? What else do they ask them?
Basic information as name, date of birth, address, social security, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Let me make my question a little more specific. Other than, hey, Mr. Inmate, what are you affiliated with? What other questions are asked that would trigger you making a decision as to whether or not somebody's affiliated with a gang?
No other question besides if they are in the gang.
Okay. So just clarify, are you in a gang? Yes or no? And then what's your name? What's your birthday? What's your social?
Yes, sir.
Now you want to know their basic information, birthday, social, and all that, so you can keep track of them. Is that right?
No.
But why are you asking for the social then? You're trying to get a gift card?
That's just part of the process of the classification.
But processes have a reason. What is the reason for that process?
Your Honor, he already answered that he doesn't have reason for that. That's part of the.
That's the standing objection.
All right.
Oh
Now,
my God, this judge.
do you
The
also
only
do
other thing I
fingerprints?
hope
No.
is that this
Right, someone
judge.
else takes their fingerprints.
The only thing I hope is that this judge is trying to speed this along because he's going to disqualify him as an expert and just move along. We're done with this nonsense. But I don't think the judge is going that way.
We will see.
Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Does the person taking the fingerprints, do you consider them an expert in fingerprints?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Now, after having this interview with,
Do you consider the guy taking the fingerprints a fingerprints expert? Yes, I do.
Well, because it's what I say. What I says is my expert's opinion. This is just made up stuff. This is like pretend court. This is what you would see like a high school debate / we're gonna try it, we're gonna do a little trial thing. That's what you'd see.
Yeah. And this is a question that you answer with, that's not up to me to determine. I mean,
yeah. Where's the objection? Well, I mean, he asked the question. Oh my God, he asked the question. Okay. I was like, where's the defense objecting? But the defense asked the question.
I guess you said Mr. Smith, investigator Smith, had this interview, and then the main reason he decided to classify Mr. Dorsey as sex, money, murder is because he said, yes, I am. Is that right?
Yes, along with the tattoos or the picture of the tattoos that she took.
Are these interviews recorded?
No.
So it is just what the officer remembers, and we got to take her word for it.
Yes.
Now, let me correct. Actually, we don't have to take her word for it because she's not here. We have to take your word that she did that. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Now, you
like a little
were
hearsay
asked
within
on
hearsay,
multiple
right?
occasions, what do you do to classify somebody? And if I remember correctly, you kept answering, we look at literature, we search the cells, and we listen to jail calls. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Now, when you look at literature, specific to Mr. Dorsey, what literature did you find in his possession?
I didn't find any literature in his possession.
I'm sorry?
I didn't find any literature from Mr. Dorsey.
Okay. Now, sometimes there's multiple steps because you want to corroborate, right?
Yes.
I mean, somebody can tell you, I am Billy, but they're really not. They are hypothetical. They might say, I am Billy, but they're not. They might be a gangster disciple, but they want to be placed with the police because maybe they have a reason to go in there and take care of something. Is that right?
Yes, that could happen.
People lie to you. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So then once you hear something, you go and you look for more information. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't find any literature regarding Mr. Dorsey?
No.
Now, what are the identifiers of sex, money, murder?
You might see a tattoo with an SMM. They might have a Portland Trailblazer symbol on them, or a blazer, or they might show two guns or have two guns, or you might see the word two guns.
Might.
And once you have a tattoo, it's forever, isn't it?
Yes.
All right. And is gang membership eternal? Are you a gang member forever?
Yes.
Okay. So once you're in one gang, you can't shift gangs.
Oh. This guy just testified that you can't leave a gang.
So, if a person, being a young, stupid person, wants to join a gang and then get out, you can't leave the gang. So you are stuck with that forever, according to this expert.
This is so stupid. There are decades and decades of example of people who are leaving gangs.
Didn't Baker leave a gang or something? Or is that you? You were in a biker gang or a scooter gang or something, weren't you?
Me?
No, I'm thinking of
No.
someone else.
Vices had a biker.
Was it Vices that was in a biker gang?
Not a biker gang, an associates of bikers who like to travel together.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
A gang.
Well, according to this guy.
Yeah, according to this guy, absolutely, it was a gang, right?
Yeah. And I don't know when I was a stupid teenager.
You can leave a gang if you bring a doctor's note. I like that. That would be my next question to this guy. What if you had a doctor's note? Could you leave a gang? I would seriously ask him that.
Motorcycle club. Yeah, he was in a motorcycle club and nothing else. Permanent part of the blood until my uterus stops, technically. Oh my god.
That's
this
gross.
can't
I'm
be
eating.
this can't be real.
You can,
You just told me that you're in a gang forever. How are you going to do that?
but it's still considered a gang.
Oh, okay, okay. Part of your training, am I right, is that they tell you to also consult with other agencies, correct?
Yes.
Because what you're doing is you're gathering intelligence, is that right?
Yes.
And you don't want to have just the intelligence of a small circle of information, right?
Yes.
Okay. What agencies do you consult on a regular basis?
The Cobb County Police Department and Department of Corrections.
All right, but that's still just the same group of people you're dealing with, right?
Yes.
Do you ever go out and consult with the investigators in Tripp County?
No, I haven't.
Now, Tripp County has a very big gang problem, don't they?
I don't know.
We're not qualifying it today.
I sustain the objection.
So today, you're here to tell us that
They are not.
What's that?
Did you just say they are not qualifying him as an expert?
Then why are we here?
investigators in Tripp County.
No, I haven't.
Now, Tripp County has a very big gang problem, don't they?
I don't know.
We're not qualifying it today.
I sustain the objection.
So today, you're here to tell us that the only thing you know.
Why is it there? This is a Daubert hearing. You're supposed to have a
She might have
Daubert.
said we're not qualifying him as an expert in gang activity in that area, in that city or something, but I couldn't hear. Just in prison, because he's supposed to be a gang expert for the gang activities in prison.
Yeah, but they are trying to have him on as a gang expert, full stop. Not a gang expert in this county jail.
No, Mike got it right, though, because he unlocks his door every time he comes home. He is a door lock expert.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly
And
true.
Composer is a breathing expert.
Oh.
Tweety is periodically a period expert. Tweety is on fire today.
She must be going through something today. Dirk. Yeah, right, Dirk. And everyone he works with are his peer review.
Holy macaroni. Everyone here is a computer or phone expert.
That's right.
Because we are watching this through a computer or a phone. Oh,
You only know stuff at the jail. Right.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
DeKalb County.
At the DeKalb County Jail.
Yes.
Which is a different county than the county we're in today.
Yes.
All right, Tweety, I'll call you in 5 days to come on the stream.
These gang profiles that y'all create, do you share them with other agencies?
If they ask for them, yes.
Okay. Have you looked into gang profiles of other agencies for the same individuals?
I have asked for DeKalb County for this individual we're speaking of today.
Okay. You had asked, and what did you get as a result of you asking that?
I got a gang profile from that department.
For what department?
DeKalb County.
When did you get that?
I don't recall the actual date.
Was it like a few weeks ago, a few months ago?
No, it was months ago.
Months ago, okay. But you are DeKalb County though?
Yes.
All right. So I'm confused. You being DeKalb County, you asked for DeKalb County's?
Yes, the DeKalb County Police Department has their own separate gang unit.
Okay. And who is in that gang unit?
Different police officer detectives.
All right. Who's the detective you spoke with about my client, Mr. Dorsey?
I can't recall his name.
Okay. And then when he gave you this profile, he just emailed it to you, or how did you get that profile?
He just emailed
it.
Did you have a conversation with him?
No.
Okay. Did you go back with him and say, hey, my information checks, it's the same as yours, or hey, some of your information is conflicting. Did you do that?
No.
Do you ever do that?
Yes.
All right. Have you ever done that with regards to my client, Mr. Dorsey?
No.
Why not?
I didn't see the need to.
You don't see the need to verify information that you collected and other agencies have collected?
He already said he didn't see the need to.
I stand the objection.
With regards to the two profiles that you have, one was made by the DeKalb County Police Department that you don't remember the name of that officer. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
The other one was made by Investigator Taylor Smith, who was with the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little about those profiles. Are they both the exact same, or do they differ in some ways, and in what ways?
No, they'll be different. The DeKalb police will probably have more narratives of what they occur on with the individual on the street.
Do you know how DeKalb classifies, what information they use to classify somebody?
The DeKalb police know.
Okay. Have you ever gotten a profile from the Atlanta Police Department?
Not that I recall of.
You didn't ask for one?
No.
Would it be beneficial to know what the Atlanta Police Department is saying about my client for your classification purposes?
It could.
Okay. Do you usually just do things by gut feeling, or is there a manual for you to follow when classifying somebody?
Yes, it is. I stand the objection.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor. When classifying somebody, the things you do to classify them, are they just the things that you do because that's what you feel like doing, or is there an actual number of steps, a methodology given to you by the people who trained you?
Yes, it's certain things that we would do in order to classify somebody.
All right, and that is, so it's not just whatever you want to do. There's steps you have to follow.
This is ridiculous.
Yes.
All right. Please tell us, what are those steps that you have to follow when classifying somebody?
Investigate phone calls, conduct cell searches to try to find literature, things of that nature.
No, but listen, that's just
it's no specific steps. It's just
observe and report. So what he's basically testifying to is, I got a report that says that this guy said he was part of this gang, and I got other documents from other people that say, hey, these are what these gang members do when they're part of this gang. And then I listen. And then I put all that together and I say whether or not somebody is part of a gang. That's what he's testifying to, right? I mean, anyone could do this. A trained monkey could do this. A 12-year-old could do this.
I mean, you can feed it into a program. And if there are enough common alleles.
Alleles. I'm going to use allele for everything now. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
if there's enough common alleles, then yeah.
Yeah, but this guy is just saying, I get a piece of paper, I look at it, I ask him, are you a gang member? He says yes or no. But if he says no, do you just drop it?
So let me try to explain how bad this is. As a practicing attorney, it would be very difficult for me to present this witness as an expert in court without being laughed out of the court, my reputation destroyed, and the judge maybe even sanctioning me for wasting everybody's time. That's how bad this guy's qualifications are, and the foundation was for his expertise.
Yeah, but since it's a RICO trial, apparently everything goes.
Apparently, this judge doesn't care. I would be embarrassed and sanctioned probably for bringing a witness like this.
This is
as an expert. Now, mind you, he could testify. I saw him do this. I read a report that said that. Whatever. The report is hearsay within hearsay, so you can't get it in. Maybe that's why. Maybe this woman's not available. Maybe this woman that made the statement. Oh, I have a conspiracy theory here now. All right, here's my conspiracy theory. Completely supported. The defendant made a statement to a woman that, yes, I'm a part of this gang, and she wrote it down. Now this woman doesn't want to testify. She left the state. She left the country. It doesn't matter. She's dead. I don't care. She doesn't want to testify. They can't get that statement in because it's hearsay, right? So the way you can get it in, though, is if you qualify somebody as an expert and they reviewed these statements as part of their analysis, then you can get that statement in. That's my conspiracy theory. This woman doesn't want to testify. This is the only guy willing to testify. That I don't know if it has any merit to it whatsoever, but that's my thought.
Yes, and if you want to find out the answer on my channel, you will join me here tomorrow because I've been doing 2.5 hours. It's over 2 a.m. where I am. So I'm going to send you over to Megan Fox. Please tell please tell her you sent me. And like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, and have a nice day, folks. Talk to you later.